And here we are. Oh, I see. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back again. All I'm seeing on my monitor is a wonderful Metaverse Week in Review logo, which has been captured perfectly well there. I thought I pressed the wrong camera for a minute and put up my slideshow. Anyway, welcome to this week's Inworld review. It's hard to believe it, but we're already in February, and today, indeed, is February the 3rd. And a lot going on indeed. And we're also joined today by two special guests, one of whom is here already. The other one, I hope, is going to turn up before we get too far into the show. But of course, as usual, I am joined here by Saffia Widdershins. So welcome, Saffia.
Hello, Mal. Good to be back.
And I'll come back to you, Saffia, in a second. But we'll also welcome the first of our guests in here today, Phelan Corrimal, also known as Kevin Phelan, of course, from Rockcliffe University, who's going to be here telling us a little bit about best practices in education in Second Life and the Metaverse later on. So welcome, Phelan.
Thanks.
Okay, let's start with you, Safia. You've always got the entry lined up, so to speak. What is new? What is new on your front?
Well, at the moment, I'm pretty submerged in doing 1 billion Rising still, and we can see the posters over here. In fact, you're very lucky that I've turned up here minus a tail, because a bit earlier, Pet and I were off filming with a whole bunch of other women, a sequence of mermaid dancers for the video we're going to be using to promote 1 billion Rising. What's really gratifying is there's been a lot of interest about what we're doing here in Second Life in the wider world, because we're a properly affiliated event in 1 billion Rising, and we're the only virtual world event, I think, at the moment. So quite a few people have come along to see what we're all about, and we thought we'd make them a video, which is based on the video called Break the Chain that the main, that the real life 1 billion Rising has
Yeah.
put out. So we've been getting together different locations and different looks to film. And most of it is kind of avatars doing ordinary things in ordinary ways, dancing in the streets, dancing in nice locations. But there's an instrumental section. We thought we'd go a bit wild there. And so we've got mermaids and we've got dragons and we've got tinies and we've got petites. And so, having seen all these human avatars dancing for most of it, suddenly you're going to go, wow. Unless, of course, you're a second lifer and then you'll just go, oh, I'm glad they put the tinies in.
Indeed. Well, I think I think we should also put out the appeal here. We're also this is actually a long 24-hour event, and
Mm,
we are actually looking for extra cameras who might want
absolutely.
to help us in world. And otherwise, our poor pet love here will be up for 24 hours, and that's pushing it a little bit.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
oddly enough, I was searching in the week for a few extra people, and I sort of came across my list of those of us who help with the Relay for Life telethon.
Yes.
And it's worth pointing out that we do know the dates of that. That will be the 13th and 14th of July this year.
Yeah.
That's the thing where all of us broadcasters, this channel, Treat TV, Metaverse TV, we're all bundled together and we have to get on with each other. We actually have a wonderful party, bringing
Yeah,
you basically 48 whole hours of events live.
that's
So that should be in your diary for 13th and 14th, which brings me nicely to Felon, because very close to that, we realized is going to be this year's Virtual Worlds in Best Practices in Education. And I had to actually, I am Felon the other day, say, by the way, we do have the telethon on that weekend.
no.
So try to avoid it. So welcome, Felon. Maybe you'd like to bring us up to date on the dates if you've got them and the various plans underway for best practices.
Just for you guys, I figured we would start 5 minutes after Relay for Life finished.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So very kind.
Does that work?
Well, if one was awake
Maybe,
still.
maybe not. Maybe not. Okay, all right. So maybe we'll adjust the dates a little bit. We're actually still in discussions on the dates because we've done a couple of different things this year. One is certainly we've moved the dates from March to July. And at this point, we're sort of playing around with a July 18th date, but we're not exactly sure just yet. We'll probably have that finalized by somebody's. All right, hold on. There we go. We have lips.
Okay.
All right, we have lips. The tentatively, we're looking at the 18th at this point, but that's not confirmed just yet. We should confirm that within the next. Probably within the next 2 weeks, but people should be looking for information coming out on the website prior to the end of the month. And the call for paper is probably coming out very early in March.
Right. Now, the other thing that's going to, well, obviously we'll be all set for broadcasting that, hopefully, for the whole 48 hours again, really. But the other interesting thing this year is it's going to be centered, there's going to be part of it centered on Second Life, as always, but you're also going to be moving to a certain extent into open simulators, aren't you?
Yes, we've had a couple of people sort of suggest it over the last couple of years, and I mean, to be quite honest, I mean, this is really kind of a neat event because I mean, it has never been. I mean, if you look at what Philippe and Marlena and a number of other people did in 2007, and then we sort of started getting involved with it in 2009, there has not been a single year where we've done the same thing twice in a row. And so, this year is going to be no different. The format's going to change up a little bit. The locations are going to change up a little bit. Certainly, we're going to be looking to do more hosting inside with various different other universities and colleges. So as they have places that are available that we can go and we can visit and we can put some of our program there, whether it's in Second Life, whether it's in Jocadia Grid, whether it's in Inworlds, whether it's in Spot On, whether it's in Unity, whether it's in Jibe. I mean, we're now opening up the doors to sort of broadening the reach in which the conference sort of participates in from a technology standpoint, right? So, that's going to be kind of interesting because it's the first time that we're actually contemplating trying to do this across multiple virtual worlds. And we do have some lessons learned from the past, which suggest where our trouble points are potentially going to be with trying to do that. And I think we can actually find a way to actually do it very effectively. But we're still in that planning stage, and we should have more information on this by the end of February. So, but everybody on the committee at this point is totally on board and just feels that we can do this and that it shouldn't be a problem. So,
I know one of your colleagues, Agile Bill, who of course focuses on agile technologies, did an event recently where it was filmed with NBC. Where it's a sort of similar thing of continuity. They had to jump from one grid to another. And some of them, I have to say, were not very televisable, especially when they just looked like a floor plan, But
Sokoko, yeah.
Yeah, it's a sort of fascinating idea. And in fact, that platform makes it an interesting back channel, if not a broadcastable one. But, the idea that we can, presumably broadcasting, for example, we can have a stream so that you can watch whichever world it is from whichever world you're in when the live event isn't in that world, if you see what I mean.
That sounds a really good plan.
Yeah, I mean it's really kind of interesting, and the fact that you brought up and I know the platform that you're talking about, it's called Sokoko.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these different platforms bring something very unique to the way in which we collaborate and, education especially. So, I mean, you look at something like VenueGen and it's sort of like a virtual world, but you don't really have the social networking component to it. You look at what we've got here in Second Life, try to translate that over to Unity, and all of a sudden you discover that none of the tools that we're used to sort of Second Life and OpenSim are just not there. And it's sort of like, what do you mean I got to program this from scratch? And then you look at something like Sococo. And one of the neat things I like about the Sococo platform is really this whole aspect that they've built in this whole security thing where I can show somebody my desktop and they can actually participate in what it is that I'm doing, but I can log into secure networks as part of that and yet still have control over what's going on. And that's something that we started to get inside Second Life, and then they very quickly backtracked from that. Right?
Yes.
They put it in, and all of a sudden they discovered what they did, and then they immediately took it out. And it's like, no, we want that. Right? I realize I can get access to somebody's banking information, but from an education perspective, you want to be able to show people what it is that you're doing, and you can't do that, especially when you're working in secure environments that require a password to get into, unless people can actually see what you're doing and be able to participate in the process. So I mean, there's that whole capacity for good and evil type of thing is always the balance that we have to, unfortunately. Educators tend to get the short end of the stick on this type of stuff, because all the things that we really want and the things that we really would like to get access to are then immediately taken away from us, because it's like, oh, no. If a student ever got a hold of that, they might actually try to do something with it, right? And
I think Saffia would agree. There's like when it comes to Second Life, especially, there's a huge backlog of things that just started and disappeared. I mean, my favorite was the Slim IM client on the desktop, which was a Vivox IM that you could use for text even when you weren't logged in or while you were logged in. It's sort of it bypassed login. And they abandoned it. And of course, they've seemed to have given up on educators and the enterprise for that matter, and, focusing on gaming and Inworld enterprise. But, you never know what's around the corner. And, there's a whole load of things I think we miss.
Yeah. But I think a lot of the things that have happened by serendipity, and they don't necessarily realize that it was serendipity. They just think, oh, that was a mistake we made, we ought to get rid of it, like megaprims, which they never supported.
Indeed, although we've got them again now, haven't we? Sort of, but that is integrated into the code their way.
I don't think they ever really disappeared. I mean, they've just imposed an artificial limit in terms of the size of a prim that you can put onto a region, and it's a configuration parameter. I mean, there's absolutely no reason in the world why we couldn't have had larger prims any time before now, right? I mean, it's not a technological constraint of any kind, but at the same time, I mean, one of the things that they did learn when they had unrestricted megaprims out there was that the megaprims do have the ability to crash a sim if they're used the wrong way. And that is a function of the physics and how the engine sort of drives things. So you do get these things where you sort of have to balance between, okay, well, the technology will allow us to blow up the world, but if we blow up the world, then there's nothing for us to do in it. So.
Yes. It's, I think they're reluctant. I mean, they do encourage and they often incorporate stuff that users come up with. But I think when users devise ways of doing things, they're very, very nervous. I remember they had, everybody was using megaprims, for example, before they were official. But, I think it was birthday bills and or various exhibitions and things that Lindens were involved with. They said, you can't use those, and you can't use those, and you can't use those, unless it's something official in the client, you weren't allowed to use it. But that's just them, really, isn't it?
Something really interesting that happened was on a Designing World show a few years ago. We had Jack Linden on to talk about Mesh when Mesh first came out.
All right.
And I mean, we had an absolutely packed studio. Everyone who could get in got in, obviously, because it's very rare to have a Linden on the show, still is. And we were chatting before we were due to go on, and he happened to mention they were going to introduce these new 64 meter prims as part of the Mesh thing. And I said, oh, wow, can you please say that on the show? And he said, oh, do you think people would be interested in that sort of detail?
Well, welcome to being out of sync with your audience.
And I sort of said, yeah. And he mentioned it, I asked him the question. He said, oh, yes, we're going. And the studio, this packed studio, sort of exploded with people, going, wow, yes, and asking questions. So, yeah.
I must say, in all fairness to them, I was mentioning this earlier on the Week in Review intro. The Leap device, I don't know whether you know of it, Kevin or Saffia, but I've been sort of going on about it for about a year, and it's finally imminent. And amazingly, in the week, we got a post from Linden Labs saying, our devs have been working with this wonderful new toy, and you can get a beta with the drivers and preferences to operate your Leap device. And I thought, my God, Linden Lab are ahead of the game for once,
But you've been talking about it for a year and a half, so perhaps they're not that ahead.
Yeah.
Well,
do you know of this, Kevin?
No, I hadn't heard of it, but something, the fact that they're doing something like that, I think is encouraging, because if you go back to 2008 when Mark Klingon took over the company from Philip.
Klingon.
Sorry, whatever his last name is, right? I mean, it's just Mark
Kingdon.
Yeah, Klingon, right?
I love
whatever.
The Klingon. I love the
right,
Klingon.
Mark Klingon, whatever. So you can tell what an impact he made, right? Yeah. So today's a good day to die. The when they started coming out with this whole Nebraska thing and this whole business paradigm and what have you, I mean they really moved away from being a lab, and that was the absolute worst thing that they could have possibly have done, because they've essentially now, since we're now talking 2013, so they've now given away 4 or 5 years of competitive advantage, where the whole reason why people were flooding into this particular area wasn't because Linden Lab was doing anything well in terms of all the bits and pieces. It was because they were the only ones that were bothering to create the tools in order to bring these technologies together. And as soon as they stopped doing that, right, they lost control. And that was, I really still think to this day that was their big mistake. So, if they're starting to do more and more of this stuff, I think that's sort of encouraging. I think maybe we might start to see them become more of an innovator in terms of convergence of technologies again. And if they do, then this might be a platform to watch out for again.
One of the intriguing things about this other thing they announced during the week, Dio, which was a storytelling-based thing they brought in, but they seem to have really adjusted it into the idea of having not quite immersive spaces, but actual spaces, where you can. I think what we can do at the moment is upload pictures, although some people have uploaded sort of Second Life panorama pictures. And you can embed links, which could take you, for example, to Second Life places as well. But one of the things is I think they want people to create, and then they want to put these places on a kind of marketplace so that you can share or sell things to other people, a bit like the way the Linden Lab Inworld economy works. Whether they'll be using Linden's or Facebook credits or anything else, I don't know. But they seem to have they seem to have maybe the first signs of a sense of what they're actually good at, and they're using the best bits of the Second Life model to put into some of these more lightweight things they're doing.
Yeah, but I'm still willing to bet they're going to still be extremely restrictive in terms of you can bring all kinds of stuff into Second Life, but there's no way we're going to let you take it out to Unity or to OpenSim or to any place else.
That's true, but we just author offline now and bring it in. Really, I think.
Well, that's the way Mesh is made. That a lot of Mesh is authored offline and brought in world, so it can be made and taken into other worlds. I do feel that one of the tricks that Linden Lab missed, and they have missed several, was when they set up the marketplace. When they took over from SL X, and bought it in and bought it and set it up.
Yeah.
I think that at that point it would have been possible to look at the idea of having a marketplace that sold many virtual worlds, and that, you know, when you bought goods, you actually ticked a box that said, okay, I want this delivered to me in Inworlds, or I want this delivered to me in Second Life.
Yeah, I think,
or, you know, for a slightly higher price, I want it delivered to me in all worlds.
Yeah. I believe, and I think Topedian is it's Kitely. Are actually endeavoring to do something like that. They want to open up their own marketplace where you can have stuff delivered to the grid of your choosing or multiple grids. Which will be interesting because since Linden Labs' attitude was to buy up the other two, there hasn't really been any independent competition for them. So, you know, somebody that does offer that service might make Linden's think twice about, you know, the market for virtual goods. You know, if a rival is suddenly selling stuff that is being equally bought for other grids, then maybe they'll change their mind.
I don't know. I guess it really depends upon the business model that comes out of it, because I mean, I understand where they're coming from. I mean, you don't want to give away the farm,
right?
In terms of, you know, so essentially what they're doing is they're creating very high switching costs for people to get out of this particular environment and go over to OpenSim. At the same time, I mean, they also create an environment where they force people out, and it's sort of like, okay, well, wait a second, you're kicking us out, but then you're not. You know, you're at the same time, you're not encouraging us to come back. So, you know, and OpenSim as, oh goodness, Bockrell had an article on her website a couple of weeks ago. She was talking about, you know, the promise of OpenSim has never been realized either. Right? There was a flood of people that went into OpenSim, and while a lot of people have gotten some good benefit out of it, it's nowhere near the numbers in terms of what Linden Labs has lost. If you look at educators and nonprofits and a lot of these other particular groups, I mean, they didn't just leave here and go to OpenSim; they left here and left.
Yeah,
and so, you know, somewhere along the line, you know, I think the thing that we all really want out of this is we want the community. We want that ability that we can share the community across these different environments. And if there's a good business model out there that allows them to make money from that, you know, I would hope that they would jump on it to sort of open up those doors again, because if they start doing things like that, I mean, you know, they might find a little bit more charity coming back their particular direction.
Yeah. I think it's, Philip once said this really, that, you know, he was very keen on OpenSim and he'd help with giving the code and everything else like that, but they weren't really interested in compatibility, not so much that they didn't want to, but because the market wasn't there. There just weren't enough people on the OpenSims, even if you count them in aggregate, for them to make a real push in sort of leading a metaverse, shall we say. You know, but that was clearly his personal opinion, and he's still chairman, but, you know, he's not running the company anymore. But yeah, interesting. Well, let's shift our focus a little bit to other things. Do feel free, Kevin, to come in on our other things. I have one link here actually. There's two links. One I've got to announce first. Deuce of Dragonash over at Metaverse TV has started a little thing at 2 p.m. Second Lifetime on Friday. It's called Bedtime Stories, and I've been helping out as have a few people. We just sort of get together, and it might, you know, some people read their own things. Some people, like me, just pick up their big book of fantastic world stories and just read a short thing, you know. But I got a post up today, in fact, saying that from Living in the Bond World, Branwen Arts and Stories Unlimited have put out a call for performers for something that's going to be called the third annual Story Fest event, which is going to be held on Sunday, 24th of March in Inworld.
Really good.
So I thought I would mention that because literature and things like this is sort of a bit of an area where the the go to an event like Rockstar, the rock and roll, the music thing connects with education, because obviously, I know from the stuff we were reading, one was sort of one girl was reading about tarot cards. She wasn't reading the tarot; she was telling us about them. So it was educational as well as being a reading, and then that was mixed with completely fictional stories, which I don't know, have morals in their message or whatever. But storytelling is something that really sort of connects a bit with education, because it's the storytelling itself is, of course, I'm sure you'd agree, Kevin, used by educationalists as a method of education to a great extent. Your thoughts?
Oh,
your thoughts, sir?
Sorry, my thoughts. There we go. Back to you. Football's over in your direction.
Oh yes, the super thingy.
The whole idea of storytelling with inside education is certainly, I mean, pretty much everything we do is based around that. I mean, it's all about establishing a connection with your audience, and it's kind of neat to see that people sort of making these particular connections with different things, and the opportunities that virtual worlds allow. I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain this, but I mean, if you look at fashion over the years, and I'm not. If you ever saw me in real life, I am not the fashion person. But I mean, if you look at the way fashions have evolved over the last 400 or 500 years, quite often the same styles and what have you come back time after time after time after time. However, there's that little twist in terms of, we have new fabrics, or we have new color combinations, or we have new, ways of creating patterns and looks and styles and what have you. And, it's just constant reinvention. And that's exactly what, education is all about, is constant reinvention. I mean, it would be quite easy in a educational context to basically go out there and just basically say, there's one calculus class and everybody will teach the same calculus class because it's calculus, it's math, right? But we don't do that, because we want to encourage the storytelling. We want to encourage these little narratives where the teacher, who is in the best position to relate to their students, can put it into terms that their students can understand and relate to. And that has everything to do with what's going on around you, with the social context, with what's happening inside your neighborhood, with what's happening in politics at that particular point in time, what's happening on the music charts, who's, whatever movies are playing. So, I mean, anytime somebody does one of these things where they have these particular types of things and encouraging storytelling in any form, I think that's always a phenomenal opportunity, and something that, definitely not to be missed.
Yeah.
Did you ever get a chance, Kevin, to talk your storytelling, to see something called the Darkened Mirror?
I had
blackened.
Oh, sorry, the blackened mirror. Oh, even now I'm in trouble, aren't I?
Okay, good. I get forgiven for the Klingon comment now.
Yes. Well, Saffia here actually was a producer of a wonderful, it's a 6-part, and it's ended on a cliffhanger, of course, damn it. So wonderful piece of machinima storytelling, but it was also a hunt and everything else that went on for sort of 6 episodes. And, well, we're in between seasons at the moment, but I thought I'd ask since you're both together here. But it was it mixed in storytelling with machinima skills, obviously, and hunts and various things listeners, viewers had to do on the web and Inworld and all over the place while the season was going on. So it wasn't just a matter of watching the episodes; it was a matter of sort of getting involved in the whole background and the hunts and research to do with the things brought up. So it's a great endeavour, we have been saying.
At first, we gave them prizes that were, like virtual goodies. But as they increasingly got hooked to the show, touch wood, what we gave them was information and background and knowledge. Extra knowledge was the prize that they were hunting for, and people went on hunting because they were hooked. Once we'd got them, then we could keep them that way. That was what we'd been hoping, and it worked.
Yeah. And we can't wait for it to come back because I want to know what happens next. I hate cliffhangers. Anyway, Saffia, what else have we got? We also had the opening yesterday, didn't we, of the LEA Arts Festival?
Yes, we did. I was there very briefly at the beginning, and then I had to rush away and have a meeting about 1 billion rising, which has taken over. But it looked really exciting, and it's a very good way. Zach Kale has been organising it, and there are details on the LEA website and on the Primperfect blog. And you can go over, you can get a special HUD that will help you tour the exhibits. And it's a really good way, if you haven't been over to the Linden Endowment for the Arts before, it's a good way to go over and see some of the things they're doing. There's a real variety of exhibits there, and some of them are stunningly beautiful. Some of them are very complex. Some of them just leave me completely cold. But I think that's a function of art, that you're not going to relate to everything. And
well, I'm just looking at...
It's really good to get a chance to go and see. I mean, even being left really cold is actually a response, which is a valid response. So,
Exactly, it's art's about communication as much as anything else, and whether it invokes something in you that's good or bad is neither here or there. It does actually invoke the thing. The PR here says it's accumulation of 5 months of hard work and inspiration, which I guess is true. And there's over 20 art installations, there's machinima screenings, artist talks and interviews, and performances and tours. So it's jam-packed with stuff. The only thing you have to contend with is something called lag, but we've all been there.
Yeah. I was going to say 5 months to organise an event. That's luxury, that is.
It is indeed. The more
Talking of which, immediately after OBR, I'm going to be plunging into meetings for a certain other event.
Will it be birthday or RFL?
It will be birthday.
Birthday comes first. Okay.
Birthday. There are lots of people doing RFL. There's a lean and mean team doing birthday, I think.
Yeah. They all they all happen in close proximity, don't they? Obviously, best practices is July. When is the birthday? June.
June, late June.
June.
Fairly soon after the Home and Garden Expo, which of course is after the Fantasy Fair, which is after Fashion for Life.
Right.
These events keep coming at you relentlessly.
And most of these are, of course, build-ups for the RFL.
Yes.
In many ways, but they're separate events that just sort of they get hotter and hotter throughout the year until the telethon arrives, and then bam.
And then that's the biggie.
So
but yes, it's all good.
Anything new on the birthday front we know of yet? I mean, because this year, of course, will be Second Life's 10th birthday. Yeah. That's a decade of Linden Labs platform. Still in beta, but 10 years on.
Isn't that 100 in real years?
It could well be sometimes. I mean, I was talking with Saffia on another program during another festival, the Winterfest thing. Looking back, me and Tara are both on it, in fact, looking back over 5 years. And only when you look back do you think, crumbs, what a lot has happened in a mere 5 years. You do that in real life, and 5 years is still 5 years, but it just seemed that the 5 years in Second Life was longer. So, yes, it's 10 organic years of Second Life. So maybe it's a century of virtual life.
It's quite interesting. I went over yesterday. Wildstyle Beaumont, who's the Designing Worlds photographer, begged me to come over to somewhere he's been wanting to get me to see, and I went over and saw it, and it was a lovely little build, lovely big build actually, which was based on MC Escher, drawings.
Oh, yes. You did a jigsaw. I saw a jigsaw of that.
I did the jigsaw of it today. And it was a beautiful, beautiful build. And it was constructed by this group called Drama Libre. And it was a nice name, Drama Free. And they have a party every week from 7 till, well, whenever everyone drops out, really. 7. So it's a bit late for Europeans, but if you get up early as a European, you can probably catch the end of it. And they have this event every week, and they always put up a new themed building for it. They have a team of builders who work on it, and they're doing some really beautiful and exciting builds. But they have a website too. Just do a search on Drama Libre SL and you'll find it. What I was looking at today was they've been running these events for 6 years, and they've got photos of the events going back 6 years. And it's really interesting because you can go back and look at the way we look 6 years ago, and the way that bills worked 6 years ago, and they're very they look so sort of bare and simplistic, and the textures are so primitive, and you think, my God, look at places like this today.
It's funny, I have a clip that we'll be showing on the video part of Week in Review later on, which is, I found it on YouTube during the week, not in my subscriptions, but just sort of casual searches. And it's actually about 4 years old. But firstly, it's a rather nice song. Secondly, it's a band performing in Second Life, not just a single musician, which is nice as well. But looking at it, I just think it's worth showing because it is cute. And it's cute because the way the avatars are made up and things like that. And you realise that, I bet you if they're still in there doing it now, they look a damn sight better. But they did look cute when they filmed it. Sort of it's there for the archive, so to speak. And it's a good machinima, so why not?
We've just had a competition, and the results are going to be announced in the Prim Perfect, which is coming out very soon.
Indeed. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, to design a new strapline, because we've always had a graphic strapline at the top of our blog, which I designed myself, back in 2007 when the magazine first came out. And it had examples of sort of iconic elements of Second Life furniture and landscape. It has the Lilith Heart palm trees that you see everywhere, the Heart Garden palm trees. Now, they still are, top end, the Lilith Heart palm trees. But some of the other stuff is kind of a bit dated. And so we had a competition to see if someone could design a new strapline for us. And we have a winner, and it'll be announced in the magazine. And this new look strapline, which is rather beautiful. It shows the best of 2013 style.
Wonderful. So mesh and all sorts of other wonderful things in it, no doubt. I got confused there for a minute. That was, of course, a competition. I was thinking of a survey now. Have you had any results on the age survey yet?
Well, I've got 220 results at the moment, and it's quite interesting. People have said that it wasn't a very good survey. There have been complaints about it and the way it's worked.
I was going to mention, actually, Tara mentioned something this morning about the structure of, one question followed another or something.
Yeah.
She was actually saying if you want to drop stuff, she's done surveys herself, and so she said she'd be glad to look through the beta of any questionnaire you might have.
I think that would be handy. I must admit, I wanted to get this one out, so I did it rather late at night.
Yes.
Don't tell anyone.
I know that feeling. But is there anything in the answers that?
Yeah, there's. I've been looking at. I'm up to 235 now. I just called it up so I can have a look at the summary. It's tending to suggest that the majority of Second Life users, 31%, are in the 50 to 60 range. 40 to 50 range. just ahead of the 30 to 40 and the 50 to 60. Their avatars, they identify as being a high proportion in that 40 to 50 range, but also quite a few that are 30 to 35. So they've tended to go slightly younger. I haven't. One of the questions that was quite interesting, you remember I did the survey on land a few weeks ago?
Oh, yes, of course.
And I did slip, and there was an overwhelming demand for lower tier. I put a slightly different question in this survey saying, what one thing could Linden Lab do to make Second Life more attractive to you? And remember, this is specifically aimed at older avatars. Although lower tier came out on top with 39%, very close behind was improve existing features on 31%.
Interesting. Basically, you think that would mean performance or ability to customize avatars and things like that, or is it just general?
I think just general. I mean, maybe I should do another survey which actually asks that question, because that's quite intriguing.
This has actually been a common complaint for quite some time. I mean, the last time Linden Lab actually had one of their if you remember T. Linden from a few years ago, when I think the last time we actually had a real development Linden actually show up to a conference was the one in San Francisco, and they were getting an earful at that time in terms of why are you focusing so much effort in terms of new features for new users when you can't get the ones that we want to have work, like the instant, like the chats. Right. And it's been a common complaint for the last nine years that, they're putting all this time and effort into these things that nobody wants. I mean, how many people use voice morphing?
Well, quite.
Right. And yet they made a big deal about it. It's like, oh, no, this is a top priority for us. And it's like, well, why don't you get our IMs to work so that we don't get locked out of our own groups?
I was just thinking one of Saffia's questions should have been, and if you are of a certain age, do you use voice morphing?
Voice. Yes, there we go.
I had, I was thinking about some of the things that have failed. Do you remember that they had their own version of Facebook for a time? I can't remember.
Yes.
Oh, Avatars United.
Yes. Such a complete waste. Why spend the money on that? Nobody wanted that. For me, it was just a tedious extra thing I had to do advertising on.
Yeah.
But really, nobody wanted that. Why did they do that?
You don't know. To some extent, it reminded me of Microsoft and bloatware. How is it that the moment you log in one day and suddenly you can cross sims like a dream, as if they didn't exist, but the same day the teleports all break.
Yes.
So you could travel a wider local distance, but you can't get anywhere else.
You can walk it. You can walk it now, but you can't.
Always, they bring something on board, and immediately something else seems to go wrong. It's like they haven't tested the connections or the compatibility.
Here's the one that gets me, because they've done a couple of really interesting waning things in the last little while. One of the big ones being that before, when you logged into an area, your avatar your client would res everything that was around you, whether you were looking at it or not.
Yeah.
And now, if you look at something, it will res what's in front of you. But if you turn away from it and then come back,
it's gone.
It's gone. Everything has to re-res. Now, can you imagine everybody that's trying to create machinima inside this environment, who are dependent upon the fact that everything has to be there when they turn the camera one direction or the other?
Absolutely. And something that's even worse in this regard, I can tell you from our programs, is that the region idling. You will be on a given sim where all the people are, but integral to your camera is the landscape extension beyond that sim. The sims will not be there unless you arrange in advance to park people on them, because any sim without people on them goes idle.
Yes.
And, you take long shots of machinima and suddenly you're looking at, not possible in real life is an apt word, but whether you would want it in the first place is another matter. Just get holes in the ground. They're not always oceans. They're sometimes vertical cliffs and non-terraformed patches, and it looks pretty horrendous.
It does. And I mean, I understand why they're doing some of these things, because I mean, in terms of bandwidth and everything else, in terms of the length of time to res things, they're trying to make it easier for people with lower class computers. But at the same time, all these things that encourage people to come into virtual worlds, such as these nice, beautiful machinimas that we see, right from the Ed Machinima conference, from the other Machinima conferences that are going on all year long. And now all of a sudden, all these people have had key aspects of their craft taken away from them, and they have no control. They have no control to bring them back.
No, and it's I think this is, if it was me, I just think this is the sort of thing that should be done in preferences. The region idling is a mess from the start, I think, although I can see they're making money out of not keeping the servers running, or rather sleeping. But it's like if we put our draw distance up, the implication to the server should be that we want to res distance. And the two should go hand in hand. If you have got a poor computer or whatever, then you can log in with really basic settings. So I don't think the onus should be on the settings and then upping the power of the platform, so to speak. It's very awkward indeed, that one.
Yeah. See, I'm sitting here with a $10,000 computer and 4 monitors, and I've got no problems running 2 or 3 copies of Second Life full blast. Right? I mean, I have no problems. My only problem on my computer setup here is bandwidth. That's my only problem, right? It's not power on the processor. So, it would be really, and sorry, okay, gripe, right? My apologies. I shouldn't be turning this into grumpy old avatars, but we should have those options that we control. How much content we want to download, as opposed to Linden Lab saying this is what we're going to give you. Right?
I think so, and you got to remember the fully immersive, connected platform that is Second Life. I mean, it's huge. We were saying last week. You can still endlessly discover new things. You can spend a whole lifetime in Second Life, and if you really wanted, travel and find new things at the moment. But as a prototype, it was this continuing extension where the sims are joined together. You can walk across them. You can teleport to different locations. This is a lot of what makes Second Life. So the region idling thing, although it makes sense in terms of energy on unused servers and stuff, what they just haven't considered is it breaks the magic of that extended world, the infinite world almost. And I'm sure to people coming in, obviously we haven't got the high-power graphics of some games and stuff. You have to sacrifice graphics in order to have all the communications and the interactivity we have. It's not a game. But within the confines of the graphics we do have, which can be good if you've got the right equipment, people coming in for the first time from a game or something are not going to expect, the virtual world to sort of drop off a cliff out of a certain distance. It just doesn't ring. It doesn't.
Oh goodness! I mean, anybody that comes into Linden Realms and thinks that's what Linden Labs is all about is in for a big shock. I mean, it's sort of like, and I don't mean to pick on Linden Labs incessantly, but it's like a comedy thing, right? I mean, it's just so easy to pick on certain things. So here it is. You've got Linden Realms, which is this sort of little gaming environment for 12-year-olds, but 12-year-olds aren't allowed to come in here because they don't meet the minimum age requirement. In the meantime, the rest of us are saying, okay, but I'm going to go back to playing Black Ops 2. where I'm going to get the performance I'm looking for out of the silly thing.
Yeah, I love the way you put that. It appeals to people who aren't allowed to come in here anyway. That just says it all, doesn't it? Really? I don't know whether you both. Moving on a bit here, actually, one other. I don't think I've got any kind of clip for this loaded, oddly enough. But something else that happened in the week, we had Dio launched, which is the storytelling thing, which isn't on the you can't get to work on the iPad. Rather, it's on the web at the moment. And but the lab also bought yes another new thing. Now it's not for Second Life. It's an iPad app called Bloxworld, which has creative building in it. Although it's it reminded me more of Minecraft. Yeah. Okay. And they've actually bought it in, so they're now up to sort of. I think their portfolio of independent from Second Life apps now runs to 5, maybe 6. It seems to be sort of a bit uncoordinated. Like some are aimed at the web, some are aimed as apps on the iPad, and I think one of them at least works on as an app on Android. But I wonder, are they just reaching out and doing something for every platform to see which they get the most response on? Or is it a sort of scattered strategy? Because these games or creative toys or whatever you call them are very different products. Arguably, Bloxworld is a bit like Patterns in some ways. But I'm wondering if they actually have a concerted strategy here, or where they're just fiddling around with something for every platform and waiting to see if it takes off. It's not like they've moved forward with an iPad strategy or an Android strategy. It seems to be a bit pick and mix, really.
I've really got no idea. I mean, they seem to have been without a strategy since 2009, and all these different things that they've been getting into and what have you. I mean, as you said, there's no rhyme or reason to them. It just seems to be like a kid in a candy store. It's sort of like, oh, look, that's for sale. Let's buy that and see if we can do something with it.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll wait and see. The everlasting mystery. This is a good story. It's a storytelling exercise in its own right. What will the labs do next, or not next?
Well, we could actually create a lottery around this, right? So I mean, you would just sort of have a pick and choose board, right? And just say, okay, what are they going to do this week, and see who wins.
That's a good point. Good point.
Get Crap Mariner to come up with all the ideas. I think that would probably be a good way to approach it.
I think that'd be an excellent way to approach it.
Yeah, that's true. We need to get Crap back on this show one day, actually. I don't think he's been on since we've had the Inworld section. He used to come on the webcam thing on the Week in Review program. But anyway. Well, I've been looking at my sort of list here, and I'm seeing no sign of JJ Zimbabwe, who is, of course, the guiding light behind the University of Western Australia. And I was speaking to him in the week, which is when we booked him in to come on. I know it's very early in Australia, but he apparently is an early riser, so he said no problem. But they have announced this week that there's not only another new UWA machinima contest, but there's the 3D art challenge too. The prize pool on this latest one is 580,000 Linden dollars, which does add up to quite a lot of real world money. I can't tell you what offhand. And the theme during the next 3 months, effectively, is going to be reflections. Now, obviously, the machinima will come in bit by bit over 3 months, whereas the 3D art challenge is sort of go from the 1st of March, I think. Well, that's the news, really. I was hoping he would tell us more, but I don't know how much more of this you might know, Saffia.
Not at all, I'm afraid.
I do know that the UWA also have a fairly close connection with the LEA Sims as well. In fact, I think one of them is one that they sort of permanently host. But I and Deuce Dragon Ash, I don't know about you, Saffia, are once again co-opted as judges for both of these two events. So I was saying Reflections sounds like a nice broad brief, shall we say, especially for Machinima. So we can look forward to that in the coming months, I think. Okay, well, since nobody else knows anything about that,
Sorry.
I haven't got JJ here. Maybe we'll get him another week, or maybe just as we're finishing. What else? What else is new, Saffia?
Well, I'm afraid I'm not very reliable at telling you things at the moment. I've basically covered all that I had to talk about, but I can mention that we've got a show tomorrow. Designing Worlds. We're going to be taking a look at Old Time Prims, which is an Inworld store. Last week we did 1920s Berlin, and I think it's a pretty amazing show. What we're doing this week is we're actually going to the sim next door, which has recently opened. It's a commercial sim based on a kind of not generic medieval Middle European town, but it draws elements of different Middle European cities, like Budapest, like Munich. There are elements there, Vienna too. But what is really interesting about it that we look at is that 3 of the stores there have real world components. 2 of them aren't open yet. One of them is. There's a music store where you can buy music that you can then download to your computer. And so you go to an Inworld store and you can listen to the music in World and then download it to your computer, which is quite fun. It's actually 1920s music. It's a lot of German music because it's run by Joe Yardley, who runs 1920s Berlin, and it's kind of out of copyright music from Germany and from the 1920s. Made into compilations.
I remember Elric was raving about some of this music.
Yes,
actually.
Elric has been not only raving but downloading. And then there is a really interesting. There's going to be a candy store, and you can go in and choose candies, and they will be mailed to you in the real world. And the third store is going to be a craft store, and you can go in and choose craft goods. And again, you will pay for them with real world money, and they will be mailed to you in real life. Or maybe you pay for them in London. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work yet. But then the goods will be mailed to you in real life.
That's kind of scary. All the things that are bad for you can get mailed to you or delivered via delivery, like pizza and poutine and these other types of things. And do you think I can get like salad and real groceries delivered in this city? It's like, no way.
I've also got a...
Oh God! In England, in the UK, it's huge. You can get vegetable boxes, and you can get supermarket deliveries. Online supermarket deliveries of of all the fresh food. Can you not do that in the States?
Well, I'm up in Canada, and in this area, no. But I don't know. Maybe in the States there might be some place that you can do it. But
I think
just thinking, all I need is candies delivered to the door. That's the last thing I need. I think at this point.
I can't quite imagine myself logging in to say Second Life and teleporting over to wherever the local pizza place is just to order the pizza. It seems like a lot of work. Although if I was in Second Life already, maybe. But I actually find this actually is the fascinating extension, of taking the concept of verticals really and selling real world goods. I mean, I think the web is something, despite its commercialism, which has arguably become really rather intolerable in some ways. I mean, one of the benefits of the web is, say, a small craft shop in Puddleton in the Marsh or somewhere can, be unique, and yet it can go online and it can sell to people all over the world who would never be in England visiting Puddleston-on-the-March, if such a place even exists.
Yeah.
So it can display those things. And also, if I wanted to shop, there's I live pretty much next door to a Whole Foods here, major Whole Foods store in London, but maybe I didn't. They do home deliveries. It would be lovely to go into a virtual build of that store and actually go around the individual cells and see what is there and then click on the things you wanted to order. The same sensation you get when you actually do go to a Whole Foods market to buy produce.
Well, it's kind of interesting because there was a thing that came out on in CBC Media earlier this week. And they were talking something very similar along the lines to that, is that in Canada anyways, Canadians have this tendency to do their research online, but then when it comes to actually buying something, they actually go down to the store more often so that they can actually hold it. I guess. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's just this aversion to buying something sight unseen, but
when you see something on the web and it's a picture, frequently they've cut it out to make it look good as a cutout and whatever.
yes.
You have, for example, no real idea of the size. Unless they stick a hand in the picture to identify it, it could be something that fits in your hand, or it could be something that takes up a whole room. You feel, there must be an urge there to go and see the real thing before you order it. So I can kind of understand that on the web anyway. But I think it's an interesting extension. It's something when all the enterprise moved into Second Life. I mean, most of it was funded by R&D. Although you did get these brands that came in now and again, and the common criticism is that they never thought out really what they were doing. They just saw Second Life like another web page. Oh, we ought to be there and go and get somebody to do it. Let's be there and they didn't resonate with the platform they're on. But there must be a load of things that are on your high street, or that if you don't live near a high street or in a parts of the world where there isn't that high street, they could have a virtual presence that really did demonstrate RL products like this, like it's going to be on your show tomorrow, and sort of sell real world goods that way. The world is their oyster if they actually bother to think about it properly. It's probably the best expression I can come up with there. Okay, I guess we'll start rounding up. I think we covered everything for this week. But just coming back to you, Kevin, obviously hopefully you'll be joining us again at the time to keep us informed as best practices progresses. But
definitely. I
thought maybe you'd like to just have a quick word about Rockcliffe, because I know Rockcliffe, you still maintain quite a few sims in Second Life, but you also have a base on Jacadia Grid now, don't you?
We do. There's a couple of things that we're starting to introduce for Rockcliffe itself as well. So, I mean, obviously the Jacadia Grid is one of the big ones because we've got we have 12 sims over in Jacadia Grid right at the moment, and we're just in the process of trying to get some of those things set up right at the moment. One of the things that we really want to do with that particular platform is to experiment with a whole pile of different types of things that we may want to do inside Unity. So essentially, we would be using that platform as a fast-track development or a prototyping environment, and then eventually start to develop our own Unity platform for Rockcliffe as well. And once we start to do that, then that opens up a whole pile of different platforms that we can start to expand program into. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. The other thing that we're looking at is I've actually just concluded a contract with a service provider that's going to help us out create our own little web app. So we're hopefully going to have that coming out inside the next, hopefully by the end of February, that will be available. So, that's something that I'm looking to getting out there because it's in some ways it's going to make finding certain things a lot easier, such as schedules and what have you, than some of the things that we have currently out there right now.
Great news. I'm fond of, I'm glad to hear you're on Jocadia as well, because my hypergridding avatar is based on Jocadia. So wherever I hypergrid to, it says Melbourne's at Jocadia.com or whatever. Obviously, since Reaction Grid have moved off OpenSim, it's my second favorite stop, so to speak. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was unfortunate about Reaction Grid, but to a certain extent, I mean, there's always some silver lining in these different things. I mean, we've also got we've had a spot on 3D as well, and I mean, one of the things that we're looking at with regards to Rockcliffe is not necessarily trying to duplicate what we're doing across the board, but to sort of strategically pick a couple of different platforms that allow us to play around with some of the ideas. Even the more controversial ones. Not that Spot on 3D would be controversial in any way, shape, or form.
Oh no!
But no, of course not. But I mean, if you're not there, you can't play with it, right? So, that's part of the reason why we're in Spot on. It's also part of the reason why we're in Jokay and we're not in some other areas, because it's sort of like, well, wait a second, we're already on Jokay. So if we go to grids X, Y, or Z, it's the exact same thing that we've already got. So, unless there's a community reason for us to go there, we're trying to pick technologies right at the moment that will give us sort of a breadth of experience that we can then bring to our membership. So that's really what we're hoping to be doing over the next little while. And Unity is also going to be part of that, as will a number of other platforms.
Fascinating. Well, you'll have to let us know as they develop. It's sort of the variety on OpenSim is of course the main thing. You don't want to go to an educator does not want to go to somewhere that, I don't know, like Inworlds, when that aspect of what you're doing is already done in Second Life. So it fits that you're on an educational grid like Jocadia's focus is really. Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for being with us, Kevin. Great to hear you get all the news and plenty.
Thank you very much, and I do apologize in sidetracking us through the grumpy old avatar type discussion.
Actually, the thing I love about this is, unlike some of the more formal shows we do, this Inworld bit is like any other show, but it's ad-libbed. We never know what we're going to talk about next, other than covering immediate things and then let it flow. So it's great. A lot of food for thought.
Cool beans.
And I guess that's it for you, Saffia, too. There's nothing else?
No. Just to say, watch out for the new issue of Prim Perfect, which will be out later this week. We've got some great articles. We're starting up a few new series. We're looking at small businesses around the grid and trying to find small businesses that are doing quite well and finding out what they have that's making them work. We're also going to be starting a major series on mesh and making a mesh. There's a brilliant article by Beck Janus, one of our regular writers, and she has really, if you are someone who doesn't understand what mesh is, how mesh works, she spells it out beautifully clearly and stuff that I was completely unaware of, and she makes it sound very straightforward, very simple, so you can understand it. Lovely article. We're also starting a third major new series. We've really gone for it this January, and that is going to be building your own home. And over the course of the year, we're going to be running a series showing you how to build your own home from scratch, starting with a basic skybox. And we'll be giving away models and textures and various things like that to help you build your own skybox and your own home. And over the weeks, it will build into a complete series, like one of those magazines, that you can get where you can build a model ship by the end of the year.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, those are quite good. Then they bind them all together into one big book,
yeah,
so you can
that's
get the
right.
book. Yeah, that's the bit. I wait for the books. Partworks. That's what they call them.
Yes.
Yeah, what they used to anyway. Yeah, good roost, that one, actually. They always give the first one away for pennies.
Yeah.
And then you go and get number 2,
and it costs a bomb.
You
Yes.
suddenly realise how much it's going to cost you to get it every week. Yeah, never mind.
But ours will always be free. So
indeed,
you're okay.
yes. Great news. Okay, well, I think it's about time we rounded up the show for this week. For those of you watching live, this is also broadcast as part of the Metaverse Week In Review, so do stay with us because the live show will continue on the web. And we have some clips coming out while indeed I do the morphing, as it's called, really, to get back into the organic suit, if the tech works, that is. So I might as well tell you what's coming up. Well, we actually have a video now of City Sphere that we spoke about last week. So it's a little video showing the strange asteroid kind of thing with a circular city on top of it, for that you will fall off unless you wear a thing that keeps you on solid ground. And then we got 2 clips featuring robots, which is great stuff. Anyway, my thanks again to Saffia, as ever, and to Phelan Corrimal. My apologies that we didn't get JJ, but maybe we'll get him next week or in the near future anyway. So this is me, Mal Burns, signing off. And once again, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mal. Bye, everyone.